Hello, my dear friend. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet even touch the floor, the world is already calling your name. Bills to pay, work to do, people to please. But let me ask you this simple question. What good is running through the day if you have forgotten how to smile while doing it? What good is a full calendar when your heart is still hungry for joy? We chase happiness like it is some far-off place, like it lives on the other side of a mountain, or down in the folds of a lover's arms, or wrapped inside the applause of the world. But happiness is not hiding from you. It is not playing games. It is right here in the now, whispering softly every time you breathe, every time you notice something simple and good. You see, joy is not something you wait for. It is something you decide on. Every day you wake up and you choose it. You choose to see the beauty in the chaos, the rhythm in the routine, the laughter in the noise. You choose to give thanks even when the road is rough, because gratitude is the doorway to happiness. When you start giving thanks for the little, you find out it was never little at all. When you open your eyes in the morning, before the rush, before the phone lights up, before the world starts whispering its endless demands, you have a choice. And that choice holds more power than we often realize. You can choose how to meet the day. You can choose the lens through which you'll see everything that follows. And one of the most life-changing choices you can ever make is to begin with gratitude. Gratitude is not just saying thank you. It is a posture. It is a perspective. It is deciding to see what is already present before craving what is missing. When you start your day with a grateful heart, the world responds differently. You shift from seeing lack to seeing abundance, from stress to strength, from complaint to contentment, because gratitude softens the edges of life. It reminds you that even if everything isn't perfect, not everything is broken either. The alarm rings, and your body may be tired, but you're breathing. That breath is a gift. The roof over your head, the people you love, the quiet moments, the food on your table, even the simple ability to feel, it's all grace. When you take a few seconds to recognize what you already have, you begin to carry yourself with more peace, more patience, more purpose. And it doesn't have to be loud. You don't need a journal or a speech or an audience. You just need a whisper of truth to yourself. Maybe it sounds like, I'm grateful for another chance, or I'm thankful for the strength I didn't know I had yesterday, or I appreciate the little bit of progress I've made. These words may seem small, but they shape the atmosphere of your entire day. There will be challenges, of course, there always are, but when your spirit is grounded in appreciation, those challenges lose their power to define your mood. You stop reacting from frustration and begin responding with calm. You start seeing what you do have rather than fixating on what you don't. And over time, that builds a kind of steady happiness. Not the kind that jumps with every high or breaks with every low, but the kind that stays, the kind that hums quietly beneath the noise. You become more present, more awake. You start noticing the light in people's eyes, the sound of laughter, the warmth of coffee, the stillness of early morning, and you realize that joy has been patiently waiting for your attention, not in grand achievements, but in the sacredness of daily life. When you choose gratitude first thing in the morning, you send a message to your mind and your heart that today will not be wasted chasing what you don't have. Today will be spent honoring what you do. And that simple decision can become the most powerful tool in your pursuit of everyday happiness. So when you wake up tomorrow, try it. Before you move, before you scroll, before you rush, just whisper, thank you. Let that be the foundation, and watch how everything else begins to grow from there. There's a quiet freedom in knowing what belongs to you and what never did. So much of our unhappiness comes from carrying burdens that were never ours to bear. We try to hold the whole world together. We try to fix everything, control everything, anticipate every outcome, and prevent every pain. And in doing so, we forget that peace doesn't come from power. Peace comes from release. Every day, life will offer you a choice: to fight what you can't change or to focus on what you can. And the truth is, happiness lives in that choice. Because when you waste your energy on things beyond your control, someone's opinion of you, how others behaved, what they said or didn't say, the things that happened years ago, you end up drained, bitter, anxious. But when you redirect that same energy toward your attitude, your habits, your perspective, your reaction, something changes. You stop feeling like life is something happening to you, and you start realizing it's something you're actively shaping. We all have storms, situations we didn't ask for, people we can't predict, outcomes we cannot guarantee, and the more we try to control them, the more tangled we become. But the ones who walk in happiness are not the ones who control the most. They're the ones who surrender wisely. They know what to hold and what to let pass through their hands like water. They know the difference between responsibility and control. They show up fully in what they can influence, and they let go of the rest. When you let go, you make room for grace, room for peace, room to breathe. You stop gripping so tightly, and you open yourself to the beauty of the present moment. You begin to trust that even without your constant management, life has its own wisdom. Not everything needs your fixing. Not every comment needs your response. Not every delay is a disaster. Some things just are, and that's all right. Control is heavy. It wears you down, even when you think it's helping. But choosing to release it doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're rising above. It means you understand that your joy is too valuable to be chained to someone else's actions or life's unexpected twists. You're no longer willing to let your peace be a casualty of your need for certainty. There is power in stillness. Power in staying centered even when the world around you moves in chaos. And that power comes from accepting what is yours to change and what is not. Focus on your own thoughts, how you treat others, the energy you bring into a room, the love you give, the boundaries you set. That's where your control lives. That's where your happiness begins to grow. So each day, check in with yourself. Ask, is this mine to carry? And if it's not, gently set it down. Pour your effort into the soil that's actually under your feet. Water your own roots and trust that peace is not found in grasping tighter, but in learning when to let go. The people around you are not just part of your environment. They are part of your emotional landscape. Their words become echoes in your mind. Their energy becomes the atmosphere you breathe. And their presence, whether soft or sharp, leaves a lasting mark on your spirit. If you want to be happy every day, then one of the most loving things you can do for yourself is to choose your circle with care. Not everyone who walks with you is walking for you. Some carry storms, some carry silence, and some carry sunshine. The difference becomes clear when you begin to notice how you feel after being around them. Do you feel lighter, or do you leave with your heart weighed down? The people who lift your spirit don't need to have all the answers. They don't need to be loud or perfect. They just need to see you, hear you, and respect the person you are becoming. Protecting your happiness is not about building walls. It is about building doors that open only to the kind of energy you want to live with. Because happiness doesn't grow well in soil full of criticism and judgment. It grows where there is warmth. It grows where your laughter is not stifled, where your dreams are not belittled, and where your vulnerabilities are not used against you. You deserve people who remind you of your strength when you forget. People who celebrate your joy without competition. People who stand beside you not only in moments of victory, but in those long, quiet nights when you are just trying to keep your heart together. These people are not always many, but they are enough. And when you find them, you will notice how much brighter life becomes. Sometimes you will have to let go of people you love, simply because the version of you that is growing no longer fits into the space they offered. That is not betrayal, that is truth. And honoring that truth is an act of deep self-respect. You are allowed to outgrow those who drain you. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that leave you aching. You are allowed to seek peace more than approval. And as you seek to surround yourself with the right people, remember to be that kind of person too. Uplift others, speak life, listen fully, be gentle with people's stories. Happiness multiplies when it's shared in safe spaces. When love and kindness are given freely without scorekeeping or comparison, they come back around in quiet and beautiful ways. The circle is not just who you see, it's what you feel, it's how you think after the exchange is over. So if you want to be happy every day, look closely at who is sitting at your table and make sure they are not only feeding your time, but feeding your spirit. Let your life be filled with voices that call you forward, with hearts that see you clearly, with souls that add warmth to your days. Because in the end, happiness is not a solitary journey. It is built together, step by step, with the ones who help you remember who you are. You carry a voice inside you, a quiet narrator that speaks more than anyone else ever could. And the way that voice speaks determines the way you feel, the way you show up in the world, and the way happiness finds you. We often underestimate the power of how we talk to ourselves. We rush to encourage others, to lift them when they're low, to tell them they're worthy, strong, and enough. But when it comes to ourselves, we whisper cruelty disguised as honesty. We call it being real, being tough, but too often, it's just being unkind. If you want to be happy every day, you must begin by softening the way you speak to yourself. Speak like someone who knows their worth. Speak like someone who remembers that healing takes time, that growth is not always pretty, and that you are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress. There is strength in gentleness, and every time you speak kindly to yourself, you are planting seeds of peace within your soul. You don't have to earn love from yourself. You don't have to reach a goal or fix every flaw before you're allowed to be proud. Celebrate the small wins. Be patient with the setbacks. The world outside will try to rush you, judge you, measure you by impossible standards. Don't let your inner world do the same. Let your thoughts be a sanctuary, not a battlefield. We are taught to please, to perfect, to perform, but what if you simply paused and said to yourself, you're doing just fine? What if instead of replaying every mistake, you focus on how far you've come? What if your own voice became your greatest source of comfort rather than criticism? That is not vanity, that is healing. That is choosing joy over shame. And even when you fall short, when you don't meet your own expectations, when you're tired, discouraged, or uncertain, especially then, speak love, speak grace, because happiness doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires you to be fully human and still gentle with yourself through it all. No one hears your thoughts more than you. Let them be kind. Let them be honest. Yes, but never cruel. Remind yourself that you are learning, that you are trying, and that effort is something to be honored. You would never tear down a child learning to walk. So do not tear down yourself as you learn how to rise in this life. This voice inside, when trained in kindness, becomes your best companion. It helps you stand back up after disappointment. It steadies you when the noise of the world grows loud. It reminds you of your light when you can't quite see it on your own. So as you move through your days, be mindful of what you say to yourself in silence. Replace self-doubt with encouragement. Replace shame with understanding. Replace judgment with love. Because the way you talk to yourself becomes the way you feel in the world. And happiness starts not in what others give you, but in what you give to yourself. Life moves fast, too fast. One moment you're rushing to meet a deadline, the next you're scrolling through your phone trying to catch up with the world, barely noticing the world right in front of you. And in all that noise and all that movement, something beautiful is lost. The small, ordinary moments that quietly carry joy. Happiness isn't always loud. It doesn't always arrive wrapped in celebration or with the sound of applause. Sometimes it sits silently in a warm cup of tea, in the laughter that slips out when you weren't expecting it, in the feeling of sunlight on your skin, in the gentle rhythm of a familiar song. These moments won't stop you in your tracks unless you're paying attention. And that's the key, noticing. Slowing down long enough to see what has always been there. We are trained to chase after big things, the promotion, the perfect relationship, the perfect version of ourselves. But joy rarely waits at the finish line. It shows up during the process. It shows up in the in-between. It's there when you finally breathe after a long day. When a friend says just the right words, when you catch your own reflection and think, maybe I'm not doing so bad after all. The small things are not small. They are the pieces that build your life. And when you start to see them for what they are, everything changes. You stop rushing toward a happiness that always feels just out of reach. And instead you begin to live inside of it. You begin to notice how beautiful the ordinary really is. There's a kind of magic in awareness. When you are present, really present, you find meaning in places you once overlooked. A child's drawing becomes a masterpiece. The way your dog greets you becomes a reminder of unconditional love. The messy kitchen is proof that people are alive, eating, gathering, sharing. When you shift your focus, you don't need more, you see more. And this doesn't mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. It means letting joy exist alongside it all, letting it breathe in the same space as your struggles. Because life is not all light or all darkness, it's both. And your ability to find joy in the cracks, in the quiet, in the small and steady, is what keeps your heart open even when life is hard. Train yourself to pause, to look, to feel. Let the scent of rain stop you for a second. Let the way someone says your name make you smile. Let a simple memory warm your chest. These are not wasted seconds. They are the moments you'll miss most if you let them slip by unnoticed. Happiness is not something you chase down the road. It's something you notice on the walk there. It lives in the now, in the gentle details of everyday life. And when you make it a habit to find beauty in the ordinary, you begin to realize that joy was never missing, only overlooked. We spend so much of our lives waiting for things to settle, waiting for the timing to be right, waiting for the version of ourselves that will finally be good enough. We put happiness on pause, telling ourselves that once we get the job, lose the weight, fall in love, make more money, then we'll be happy. But the truth is, happiness doesn't live in the perfect moment. It lives in this one, right here, right now. Perfection is a mirage. The more you chase it, the farther it moves away. It convinces you that joy is always on the other side of something, that who you are today isn't quite enough. And so you keep striving, keep measuring, keep editing your life like a draft that can't be published yet. But happiness doesn't wait for perfection. It waits for your presence. It waits for your permission. You can be in the middle of becoming and still be joyful, still be proud, still be at peace. There is beauty in the unfinished. There is grace in the becoming. You don't have to have it all together to deserve laughter. You don't need everything in order to feel fulfilled. Some of the happiest people you'll ever meet are the ones who made peace with imperfection. They know that happiness isn't about having everything. It's about noticing what they already have. And when you stop chasing perfection, you start living lighter. You start seeing yourself with softer eyes. You forgive more quickly. You try new things without fear of failure. You speak without overthinking. You laugh without wondering if it's too loud. You begin to exist in your life fully, not waiting in the wings, but dancing center stage, flaws and all. Happiness grows in the soil of acceptance. When you stop resisting what is and start embracing it, even the hard moments become softer. You find meaning even in struggle. You begin to understand that you are not broken, just beautifully human. And that realization, that release, becomes your freedom. Let go of the idea that your life has to be polished before it's worthy of joy. Life is not an edited photo. It is messy and loud and full of surprises. Let go of the script that tells you happiness is earned through perfection. You were always allowed to be happy, even with the questions unanswered, even with the mess still on the floor, even with the healing still happening. Presence is powerful. When you root yourself in the now, you start to hear things you missed. The sound of your own laughter, the softness in your own voice, the quiet strength in your steps. You stop comparing, you stop waiting, and in that stillness, happiness walks in. Not as a thunderous arrival, but as a familiar friend. So breathe deep, take this moment for what it is. It doesn't have to be perfect to be precious. It doesn't have to be flawless to be full of light. You are here, you are alive, and that is already enough. Happiness isn't some distant treasure buried beneath years of striving. It's not locked behind perfect plans or flawless days. It's here, already waiting within the way you choose to see, speak, and move through the world. It lives in gratitude and releasing what weighs you down, in surrounding yourself with lighthearted souls, in the way you speak gently to yourself, in finding beauty in the small and quiet, and in choosing presence over perfection. You don't have to wait to be happy. You just have to allow it, moment by moment, breath by breath. So go gently, go boldly, and may you wake each day with a heart ready to notice the joy already blooming in your life. Good luck on your journey, and thank you for listening. Ladies, let me tell you something real. There is a fire deep inside you, even if the world has tried its best to smother it. There is gold running through your veins, even if life has told you to shrink. And if no one has told you lately, let me say it loud so your spirit hears it. You are worthy, you are enough, and you were not made to be average. You were born to rise. You were born to shine. You were born to walk into a room and change the temperature. That is the power of a high-value woman. Canal your worth so deeply that no one's doubt can shake it and no one's absence can break it. That kind of knowing does not come from compliments or praise. It is not built on applause or attention. It is carved from solitude. It rises from those quiet nights when you sit with yourself and remember. Every time you survived what tried to end you. It grows in the moments when you stand up for your truth, even if your voice shakes, even if your knees feel like giving way. Knowing your worth means you do not wait for someone to choose you to feel valuable. You already are. There is something unshakable about a woman who knows who she is. She walks with a stillness that does not beg to be noticed. Her presence alone speaks louder than noise. You see, people can feel when a woman has done the work to love herself, when she has peeled back the layers of shame and walked through the fire of doubt and come out with her head high. That kind of power does not yell. It simply is. And the world learns to adjust. When you know your worth, you stop asking questions that already live inside your answer. You no longer chase love that runs from you. You no longer apologize for needing space, peace, clarity. You do not allow people to treat you like a backup plan or an option. You become the standard, not just for others, but for yourself. And that kind of standard shapes your choices, your voice, your entire life. Sometimes knowing your worth means standing alone. It means losing people who love the version of you that didn't love herself. It means choosing silence over attention that lacks respect. It means understanding that not everyone is meant to walk with you on the path to your higher self. But let me tell you, there is a sacred beauty in that loss. Because with every person who walks away, space is cleared for something better, someone better, or maybe just more of you. You begin to walk differently when you are no longer driven by fear of rejection. You begin to speak differently when you are no longer waiting to be chosen. You love differently when your heart is full without needing someone else to fill it. This kind of worth does not need to be proven. It only needs to be remembered. To remind yourself every single day. Remind yourself when you're tired, when you're lonely, when you're second-guessing everything. Say it out loud if you need to. I am enough. I am whole. I am powerful, even in silence. Because once you hold that truth close, there is nothing anyone can take from you. Not love, not peace, not dignity. You are the keeper of your crown. Wear it like it was always meant for you. Protect your peace like a crown jewel and never trade your silence for chaos. In a world that constantly pulls at you, demands your attention, drains your spirit, you must learn to guard your peace as something sacred, because it is. Peace is not the absence of noise. It is the strength to remain grounded in the middle of it. It is the decision to stay soft in a hard world, to stay still when everything around you is moving too fast, to choose calm even when your emotions scream for reaction. A high-value woman knows that not everything deserves her energy. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every invitation to chaos must be accepted. There is a power in silence, not the silence of weakness or suppression, but the silence of wisdom, the silence that listens more than it speaks, that thinks before it reacts, that watches before it moves. When you protect your peace, you learn to walk away without needing to explain. You learn to rest without guilt. You understand that inner harmony is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. You begin to recognize how heavy certain energies feel, how draining certain conversations are, and how often people will try to disturb your stillness just to feel a little less restless in their own chaos. But you are not here to carry what does not belong to you. You are not a dumping ground for anyone else's insecurity or drama. You are not here to constantly defend yourself, prove your value, or explain why your soul demands quiet. You do not owe anyone access to your inner world. Peace is your responsibility. And part of that responsibility is learning when to say no. No to drama, no to unnecessary conflict, no to over-explaining, no to relationships that keep you in survival mode instead of helping you grow. Protecting your peace also means learning to pause, to breathe before reacting, to feel without being consumed. It means letting go of the need to control everything and trusting that what is meant for you will not miss you. A high-value woman is not controlled by urgency. She moves when it feels right, not when she is pressured. Her peace is not for sale, not even for love. not even for validation, because she understands that once she sacrifices that peace, she loses the most powerful part of herself, her clarity. And so she chooses stillness. She chooses soft boundaries wrapped in steel. She chooses rest. She chooses environments that feel like healing and people who feel like home, because she knows that protecting her peace is not selfish. It is essential. It is how she remains powerful, gentle, and whole. Set standards rooted in self-respect and walk away from anything that asks you to shrink. A high-value woman doesn't chase validation, she sets the tone. She is not molded by someone else's comfort or limited by someone else's fear. She draws a line in the sand and says, "This is where I stand. This is who I am. This is what I will and will not allow." And she does not tremble when people leave because they cannot meet her where she stands. She knows that the loss of what dims her light is not a loss at all. It is liberation. When your standards come from a place of self-respect, they are no longer negotiable. They are not there to impress anyone. They are there to protect you, to protect your peace, your worth, your growth. It's not about arrogance or pride. It's about knowing your value so clearly that you no longer settle for being tolerated when you deserve to be celebrated. It's about refusing to accept breadcrumbs when you are capable of a full feast. Because every time you accept less than what your spirit needs, you teach the world how to treat you. And baby, the world listens. Setting standards is not just about what you expect from others. It's about how you show up for yourself, the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening, the habits you keep, the boundaries you honor, the dreams you protect from distraction. It's about holding yourself accountable to your own greatness. When you respect yourself, you stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never designed for your expansion. You stop staying quiet in rooms that need your voice. You stop loving people who only love you when you're easy to manage. And yes, there will be moments of loneliness. There will be days when you second guess whether your standards are too high. But I promise you this, the right ones will rise to meet them. The people who are meant to walk with you will never ask you to make yourself small to make them feel tall. They will honor your standards because they are built from truth. And the ones who can't, let them go with grace. Your self-respect is not up for compromise. You are not hard to love. You are just not meant for those who fear depth. You are not asking for too much. You are asking the wrong ones. Keep your standards high, not because you think you're better than anyone else, but because you finally believe you deserve the kind of life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to belong. Let every no become a sacred act of self-love. Let every walk away be a declaration that you are choosing yourself again and again, according to overall key points, and add only necessary ending line. Own your voice, speak with intention, and never apologize for taking up space. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who has found her voice and is no longer afraid to use it. She does not whisper when her truth is burning to be spoken. She does not lower her tone to comfort those who are uneasy with her strength. A high-value woman knows that her voice carries weight, not because it is loud, but because it is rooted in honesty, clarity, and purpose. She speaks when it matters. She listens when it's wise. And when she speaks not to be heard, but to be understood. For too long, too many women have been taught to be agreeable, to be quiet, to not ruffle feathers. But a woman who constantly silences herself for the comfort of others is not at peace. She is at war with her soul. She begins to fade little by little until she barely recognizes the sound of her own truth. But a high-value woman knows that silence, when misused, becomes a prison. And so she frees herself by giving herself permission to speak up, to say no, to ask for what she needs, to name what she deserves. This voice, this power, does not come from outside approval. It is built in the moments when you choose truth over people-pleasing, clarity over confusion, boundaries over betrayal. It is strengthened when you stand in front of a room or even just in front of your mirror and speak from a place of self-acknowledge and self-trust, even if your voice shakes, even if you're afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to be ruled by it. A high-value woman does not shrink to fit in. She expands to show others what's possible. She does not apologize for being passionate, direct, emotional, or ambitious. She does not make herself small so others can feel big. She walks into every space with the knowledge that she belongs there, not because she was invited, but because she brought herself. She has a message. She has wisdom. She has every right to speak. And when she speaks, she does not waste her words. She speaks with intention. She chooses substance over noise. She knows that what she says can lift, heal, lead, and transform. So she doesn't gossip. She doesn't ramble. She doesn't speak to impress. She speaks to impact. And she listens too. Because real power understands that silence also holds wisdom when it is chosen, not forced. To become her, you must let go of the need to be liked by everyone. You must embrace the discomfort that comes with being honest. You must remember that your voice is not just yours. It is the voice of every version of you that stayed quiet when she needed to speak. So speak now. Not just for you, but for her. Pour into yourself first because you cannot be powerful from an empty well. A high-value woman understands that her energy is her currency, her time is her wealth, and her spirit is the source of it all. She knows that to give from a place of lack is to betray herself. So she learns to refill before she pours, to rest before she breaks, to say no before resentment takes root. She understands that strength is not in how much you give away, but in how deeply you stay connected to your own source. There is nothing noble about exhaustion. There is nothing holy about self-neglect. Too often, women are praised for how much they endure, how much they sacrifice, how much they carry for others. But a woman who is always running on empty cannot rise, cannot lead, cannot fully love. She may survive, but she cannot soar. And a high-value woman was born to soar. So she learns to choose herself without guilt. She learns that self-care is not selfish, it is sacred. She builds a life that nourishes her. She surrounds herself with people who pour back into her. She creates space in her days, not just to work and serve and perform, but to breathe, to dream, to just be. She gives herself permission to rest without earning it. She honors her body, her mind, her heart, not just when it's convenient, but every day. She feeds herself with good thoughts, good food, good company. She treats herself like someone who matters. And when she is full, oh, how she shines. When her cup overflows, she gives not from obligation, but from joy. Her energy becomes magnetic. Her presence becomes healing. She becomes the kind of woman who uplifts others, not by emptying herself, but by standing so fully in her own light that others are inspired to find theirs. She does not pour herself into spaces that leak. She does not chase people who drain. She protects her energy like a treasure because she knows it is one. To live as a high-value woman, you must learn to ask yourself daily, what do I need? What fills me? What brings me back to myself? And then you must answer with action, not just intention. Do not wait for someone else to rescue you. Do not wait for a crisis to start caring for your soul. You are the well. You are the source. You are the one who must choose to be whole. So take the time. Take the space, say the prayers, breathe the air, speak the affirmations, be the love you seek, fill yourself so completely that you become unstoppable, not because you are invincible, but because you are grounded, nourished, and fully alive. To become a high-value woman is not about chasing perfection. It's about choosing power, peace, and purpose every single day. It's about knowing your worth without question, guarding your spirit without guilt, and living your truth without apology. It's about setting standards that honor your soul, speaking with fire and grace, and making sure you are whole before you pour into anyone else. You are not here to shrink, to settle, or to be silent. You are here to rise, to take up space, and to walk like the ground was made for your steps. So keep your head high, keep your heart full, keep walking in truth even when the road gets quiet. You are not too much, you are exactly enough, and this world needs the woman you are becoming. Good luck on your journey. Thank you for listening. Keep shining. Keep becoming. Hello, everyone. There are moments in life when the loudest voice is not the one that shouts, but the one that stays still. There is a strength in silence that many do not recognize. It is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is the quiet courage to hold back words that may wound and to allow space where healing can enter. When we think of conflict in our relationships, we often believe we must fight to be heard. We push and we press, believing that louder means stronger. Yet the truth is, silence has a language of its own. It speaks of patience, of wisdom, of the willingness to listen rather than destroy. When anger rises and pride builds its walls, silence is the doorway out. It does not mean you accept injustice. It does not mean you shrink yourself. It means you choose to give the storm a chance to pass, for no storm rages forever. Silence is the soft rain that calms the dust in the air. It is the pause that keeps love from bleeding too deeply. It is the reminder that not every word needs to be spoken to prove a point. Some words, once released, cannot be taken back. But silence, when chosen with intention, can prevent regret from planting its roots. In every relationship, there will be conflict. Two souls meeting in love will still carry their own wounds and their own ways. But silence offers the chance to breathe. It gives both hearts the gift of reflection. It says, I value peace more than the need to win this moment. It says, I will not let anger guide my tongue. It says, I will wait until I can speak with clarity instead of cruelty. Silence is not emptiness. It is a vessel holding compassion, respect, and understanding. Silence is not weakness. It is the strength to pause before anger turns into regret. When two people find themselves caught in the heat of an argument, emotions rise like a wave that threatens to sweep away reason. In those moments, the urge to respond, to defend, to strike back with words sharper than blades can feel almost irresistible. But silence stands as a quiet shield. It is the reminder that you are not bound to every impulse that rushes through your veins. You are not enslaved to every thought that springs to your mind in anger. The greatest strength is not always found in the loudest reply, but in the courage to remain still when your heart longs to shout. Many believe silence is surrender, as if refusing to fight means you are defeated. Yet in truth, silence is the calm presence that refuses to be dragged into the fire. It is an active choice, not a passive one. It is strength in restraint. To pause before anger spills into reckless words is to hold power over yourself. And that is a power greater than the illusion of victory in a quarrel. Because what is victory worth if it leaves scars on the one you love? What is winning an argument worth if it weakens the bond that once gave you joy? Silence carries with it the wisdom of patience. It says, I will not let this moment of fury define the whole of my relationship. It whispers, I care enough to step back rather than push forward into destruction. There is a deep maturity in silence, for it recognizes the cost of anger. Anger, once unleashed, does not simply vanish. It clings, it lingers, it plants bitterness where love once bloomed. But silence interrupts that cycle. It allows you to breathe when every nerve wants to rush. It allows you to see beyond the present flame and consider the tomorrow you wish to build. There is a power in that pause. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm with winds raging around you. To speak in anger is to add fuel to the storm, to fan the fire higher and higher. But to choose silence is to plant your feet firmly on the ground, refusing to let the storm control you. The storm may roar, but you remain unshaken. In that stillness, strength shines brighter than any shouted word could. For anyone can lash out, but only the strong can remain composed. This strength of silence does not mean ignoring the conflict. It does not mean burying your truth or silencing your voice forever. It simply means you choose the right moment to speak. It means you value the quality of your words over the speed of your reaction. There is a world of difference between speaking in rage and speaking in clarity. Rage wounds, clarity heals. Silence gives you the space to find that clarity, so that when you do open your mouth, your words will carry weight without carrying destruction. In silence, you also allow the other person the space to breathe. Often conflict escalates not because of one voice, but because both voices climb higher and higher until neither can hear the other. When one chooses silence, the cycle breaks. The air begins to cool, and in that cooling, both hearts can find a way back to reason. Silence is not an act of giving up. It is an act of giving space. Space for love to return, space for understanding to grow, space for the bond to heal. It takes courage to remain silent when your pride urges you to fight. It takes strength to pause when your emotions want to dominate. But that is the strength that saves relationships. That is the strength that transforms conflict into connection. So when anger rises and you feel the fire pressing at your lips, remember that silence is not weakness. It is the strength to protect what truly matters before anger leaves behind words you cannot take back. In silence, emotions settle and clarity finds its way back into the heart. When conflict erupts between two people, it is often not the issue itself that tears them apart, but the intensity of emotions that come rushing in with it. Words are thrown like stones, not because they are truly meant, but because anger has blinded judgment. Yet silence is the moment when the water stills after being stirred. It is the moment when the storm begins to quiet and the sky slowly clears. In that stillness, hearts can begin to see again, minds can begin to think again, and love can begin to breathe again. Emotions in conflict are like sparks scattered in the wind. If left unchecked, they ignite into flames that can burn both people. But silence is the pause that keeps those sparks from spreading. It is not about suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist. It is about giving those emotions the time they need to soften. Just as fire dies down without fuel, anger fades when it is not constantly fed by shouting or harsh replies. Silence allows the fire to exhaust itself, and in its place, understanding begins to emerge. Clarity is born in those moments when you step back and allow silence to lead. While words may twist and break under the weight of anger, silence carries no distortion. It gives you space to see the situation as it truly is rather than as your emotions have painted it. In the quiet, you remember that the person before you is not your enemy, but someone you care for, someone you once chose with love and trust. That perspective is often lost in the noise of an argument, but can return in the soft embrace of silence. When you choose to be silent, you allow your own heart to catch up with itself. Emotions move quickly, but wisdom takes time. Silence is that bridge between the rush of feeling and the calm of understanding. It is where you gather yourself, where you find the strength to respond with intention instead of reaction. Without silence, clarity cannot come, for clarity needs room to breathe. It needs the still air of patience, not the chaos of constant words. Silence also speaks deeply to the other person in the conflict. It communicates that you are not choosing to fight blindly, that you value peace over pride. It signals that you are willing to listen, even if not in that very second. And that simple act of stepping back often invites the other to soften too. People rarely calm down when shouted at, but they often lower their voices when met with stillness. Silence sets the tone for reconciliation in a way that words alone cannot. Think of silence as a gentle teacher. It teaches patience. It teaches restraint. It teaches that not every thought deserves to be spoken in the heat of the moment. It reminds us that love is not proven by who speaks louder, but by who listens deeper. When we allow emotions to settle, we give ourselves the chance to honor the bond instead of harming it. Silence guides us back to the truth that relationships are not battles to be won, but gardens to be nurtured. And gardens flourish not under storms, but under calm skies. Clarity in the heart is precious. It prevents us from carrying grudges that were never meant to stay. It shows us which battles are worth fighting and which are born only of temporary hurt. Without silence, we risk confusing anger for truth and pride for strength. But with silence, we can separate the fleeting emotions from the lasting values. We can see that beneath the pain of conflict is still the desire for connection, for love, for peace. In the end, silence is not about saying nothing. It is about making room for the right things to be said at the right time. It is about letting the dust of anger settle so that the path ahead becomes clear. And once clarity returns to the heart, the words that follow are no longer weapons but bridges, no longer sharp but healing. That is the gift silence offers in every conflict, the gift of returning us to the truth of what matters most. Silence gives space for listening, which is often the true cure for conflict. In the middle of heated arguments, most people do not listen to understand, they listen to respond. They wait for the other person to pause just long enough to jump in with their defense, their accusation, or their explanation. Words collide, voices rise, and in the chaos, neither side truly hears the other. Silence breaks this pattern. It offers a pause that opens the door for genuine listening, and it is through listening that wounds begin to heal and hearts begin to reconnect. Listening is one of the greatest acts of love, yet it is often forgotten when emotions run high. When anger takes the stage, listening is pushed aside, and the focus shifts to proving a point or protecting pride. But silence reintroduces listening into the conversation. By stepping back and choosing not to speak, you give yourself the chance to hear not only the words spoken, but the emotions hidden behind them. You begin to notice the hurt, the fear, or the disappointment that lies beneath the surface of the conflict. Silence becomes a magnifying glass that reveals the true message behind the noise. It is in these quiet moments that understanding takes root. When one person chooses silence, they allow the other to release what is inside without interruption. That act alone can soften tension, because so often conflict grows worse simply because one feels unheard. People raise their voices when they feel ignored, but when they sense they are truly being listened to, their tone begins to lower. Silence, then, is not empty. It is filled with the message, I am making space for you. I am listening. I am here. This kind of silence is not passive. It is active listening wrapped in stillness. It requires discipline to hold back words that want to leap from your tongue. It requires humility to say, my voice can wait. Your voice matters now. And in doing so, silence becomes a gift that disarms conflict. It breaks the pattern of two people shouting past one another and replaces it with a rhythm of exchange. One speaks and one listens. In that exchange, healing begins. Listening through silence also has a way of transforming your own perspective. When you allow the other person to speak fully, without interruption, you gain insight into their heart. You may realize that what felt like an attack was born out of fear. You may understand that their anger is rooted not in malice but in longing. This deeper comprehension allows compassion to rise where resentment once lived. It shifts the argument from being two sides against each other to being two people working together to find peace. There is also great strength in showing someone that you value their words enough to quiet your own. It builds trust. It shows respect. It communicates that the relationship matters more than the immediate urge to defend yourself. And that trust creates fertile ground for solutions to grow. Without silence and listening, solutions remain hidden under layers of pride and noise. With them, compromise becomes possible, and reconciliation becomes real. We often underestimate how powerful listening is in a relationship. Many conflicts are not about being right or wrong, but about being heard and understood. Silence creates the opening for that understanding to take place. It gives each person the chance to step into the shoes of the other, even if only for a moment. That simple shift can turn hostility into empathy and distance into closeness. True listening cannot happen without silence, and silence cannot bring peace unless it is chosen with intention. It is not the silence of shutting someone out, but the silence of leaning in. It is not the silence of walking away, but the silence of saying, "I am willing to hear you fully." That kind of silence is sacred. It transforms the battlefield of conflict into the meeting ground of hearts. When we embrace silence as a way to listen, we realize that the goal is not to win the argument, but to preserve the bond. The purpose is not to silence truth, but to make room for it to be spoken and received. Silence, then, is not the absence of words, but the presence of understanding. And when understanding fills a space, conflict loses its grip, and love finds its way back. Choosing silence honors love more than choosing to win an argument. In the heat of conflict, pride often whispers that victory is the goal. Pride says you must prove yourself right. You must defend every detail. You must not allow your voice to be overshadowed. Yet relationships are not courts of law, and arguments are not trials to be won. A bond built on love cannot survive if victory is gained at the cost of peace. Silence, then, becomes a greater act of love than any well-crafted argument. It is a way of saying, our connection is worth more than this temporary need to win. Winning an argument can feel satisfying for a moment, but the satisfaction fades quickly if it leaves behind bruised hearts and broken trust. Silence steps in to remind us of what truly matters. It is not about proving yourself superior in words, but about protecting the bond that unites two souls. Every relationship faces disagreements. That is natural. What defines the strength of a relationship is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of love that chooses preservation over domination. Silence, in this way, is love wearing the garment of patience. When you choose silence, you show that you value the person more than the point. You reveal that keeping their dignity intact is more important than keeping your pride polished. That kind of choice carries a deep and quiet strength. It is not about swallowing your truth forever, nor is it about silencing your needs. It is about understanding that timing and tone matter. It is about waiting for the moment when love can carry the truth, rather than anger carrying it like a weapon. Silence is the bridge that helps you cross from the battlefield of pride to the sanctuary of love. In arguments, people often forget that words can linger long after the conflict is over. A cruel remark can echo in the mind for years, but silence saves us from planting those seeds of bitterness. By choosing silence in moments of anger, you protect the sacredness of love from being overshadowed by temporary rage. It is an act of devotion, a silent vow that says, I will not risk us for the sake of being right. That vow is more powerful than any victory could ever be. Love is not about keeping score. It is not about counting who was right and who was wrong. Love is about building a space where both can feel safe, even in disagreement. Silence nurtures that space. It cools the heat of conflict, allowing the roots of love to grow deeper. It makes room for forgiveness, for understanding, for reconciliation. And when love is honored in this way, the relationship not only survives conflict, but grows stronger through it. There is also humility in silence, and humility is a language love understands well. To choose silence is to say, I do not need to win at your expense. It is to let go of the urge to dominate and instead hold fast to the desire to preserve. That humility strengthens bonds because it shows that the heart values unity over pride. It shows that being together in peace is far more rewarding than standing alone in victory. This kind of silence does not mean passivity. It does not mean ignoring problems or pretending pain does not exist. It means choosing love as a higher priority in that moment. It means stepping back, allowing emotions to soften, and then returning to the conversation with words that build instead of break. It is silence as strategy, silence as compassion, silence as protection. And in that silence, love is not silenced. It is honored. When you choose silence over victory, you remind yourself and your partner that the relationship is not a battlefield, but a partnership. You remind each other that love is not about who stands taller in the argument, but about who bends enough to keep the bond unbroken. Silence, then, is not the absence of communication. It is communication in its most profound form. It says, I choose us. And in the end, that choice is worth far more than winning could ever be. Silence transforms confrontation into reflection, opening the path to understanding. In the rush of conflict, the natural response is often to meet force with force, words with sharper words, and emotions with equal intensity. Yet this back and forth only deepens the divide. Every voice raised invites another to rise higher. Every accusation sparks a counterattack. But when silence enters, the rhythm shifts. Instead of adding more fuel to the fire, silence cools the heat. It changes the atmosphere, moving the moment away from confrontation and toward a space where both hearts can reflect on what is truly happening. Reflection cannot be born in noise. When voices overlap and tempers flare, the mind is too clouded to see clearly. But silence creates a pause, and in that pause, the chance for self-awareness emerges. You begin to hear not just the words of the other, but the echoes of your own. You recognize the tone you carried, the impatience in your voice, the sting in your remarks. In silence, you can face your own contribution to the conflict. This humility is difficult but necessary, for no conflict rests entirely on one side. By reflecting, you move from blaming to understanding, and that shift alone can change the course of the entire conversation. Silence also gives the other person room to reflect. When you step back from confrontation, you allow them to hear their own voice more clearly. Often people realize the weight of their own words only after they have spoken them into the quiet. A harsh sentence sounds far harsher when it hangs alone in stillness. Silence has a way of holding up a mirror, showing both sides not only what they have said, but what those words carry. In this way, silence is not avoidance. It is an invitation for both to think deeper. Reflection leads to questions that confrontation never allows. Instead of demanding, "How could you say that?" reflection asks, "Why do we feel this way?" Instead of clinging to pride, it asks, "What are we truly fighting for?" And more often than not, the answer is not about the issue itself, but about the longing to be heard, to be respected, to be valued. Conflict is rarely only about the surface matter. Beneath it lies unmet needs, unspoken fears, or unresolved pain. Silence allows the digging to reach those deeper layers. The power of silence is that it stops the cycle of escalation. Confrontation feeds on immediate reaction, but reflection grows from thoughtful stillness. The pause prevents the next hurtful word from being spoken. It halts the avalanche before it crashes down. That pause may be uncomfortable, but within it lies the seed of change. It is the space where both can ask themselves, is this fight worth the damage? And often, the answer is no. What is worth more is the bond itself, the love that still lives beneath the frustration. Through reflection, empathy begins to awaken. You remember that the person across from you is not a rival to defeat, but someone you chose, someone whose heart you once promised to protect. Silence lets you see their pain instead of only your own. It softens the hard edges of pride and makes room for compassion. And when compassion enters, confrontation loses its grip. What once felt like a battle now begins to look like an opportunity to reconnect. This is why silence is not empty. It is not wasted time or avoidance of the issue. It is fertile ground where truth and love can grow together. It transforms the energy of the moment from destruction to construction, from tearing down to building up. Once both people have reflected, the words that return carry a different tone. They are less about accusation and more about resolution. They are no longer weapons, but tools for healing. Conflict may be unavoidable, but escalation is not. Silence shows us that the power to shift the direction lies within us. By choosing stillness instead of striking back, by allowing reflection instead of fueling confrontation, we create the conditions for true understanding. And with understanding, love always has a way to find its way back to the center. A quiet pause can cool the heat of pride and save words from becoming wounds. In every relationship, pride has a way of rising like an uninvited guest during conflict. It insists on being heard first, on being proven right, on standing tall no matter what it costs. Pride whispers that silence is defeat and that to pause is to lose ground. Yet this is not the truth. The truth is that silence is the gentle water that quenches the fire of pride before it destroys what love has carefully built. When anger and pride intertwine, words are spoken that are not truly meant. They are born in the heat of the moment, sharpened by defensiveness, and fueled by the desire to protect one's ego. Those words often leave wounds that remain long after the conflict has ended. Apologies may follow, but the memory of harshness lingers. Silence interrupts this chain. It becomes a protective shield, catching the words before they escape and cause harm. By pausing, you protect not only the other person, but also yourself from the burden of regret. There is deep strength in that pause. It takes far greater courage to hold your tongue than to unleash it in anger. Pride demands speed, but wisdom calls for patience. Silence is the strength to resist pride's command. It allows you to step back from the impulse to strike and instead create space for perspective. In that space, you remember what matters more than the argument, the love, the bond, the shared history that deserves preservation. The cooling effect of silence works much like a deep breath on a hot day. Just as air fills the lungs and steadies the body, silence fills the moment with calm. It slows the racing heart, clears the clouded mind, and softens the rigid stance of pride. It may feel small, that single pause, but it carries immense weight. It changes the tone of the entire interaction. What could have escalated into days of distance and hurt may instead resolve into moments of peace. Pride thrives on noise. It grows stronger when voices rise, when words pile upon words, when neither side is willing to back down. But pride weakens in silence. It loses its grip when met with calm restraint. That is why silence is not weakness. It is victory over the self. It is proof that you have chosen the higher path, that you have placed love above the fleeting satisfaction of winning. And that choice is not just for the moment, it is for the future of the relationship. Every relationship is tested by words spoken in anger. Some recover, others crumble. The difference often lies in whether silence was allowed to step in before pride caused too much damage. Think of silence as a guardian. It stands at the door of your lips, holding back what should not pass through. It gives you time to weigh your words, to measure their impact, to choose whether they will harm or heal. That small act of waiting often makes all the difference between tearing down and building up. A quiet pause also communicates something powerful to the other person. It shows that you value the relationship enough to resist the pull of pride. It shows that you are willing to place peace above the fleeting thrill of being right. That kind of restraint earns trust. It reassures your partner that even in conflict, they are safe with you, that your love will not be used as a weapon against them. That safety is the foundation on which intimacy and respect can flourish. We often underestimate how many conflicts could have ended peacefully if silence had been chosen at the right time. A pause of a few seconds can save hours of regret. A breath of calm can preserve years of love. Silence is not about refusing to speak, but about waiting until the words you release will build rather than break. It is not about holding back forever, but about choosing the right time and the right tone. That choice is where love finds its greatest strength. So when pride rises and anger burns, remember the power of a quiet pause. It is in that pause that healing begins, that understanding grows, and that love is kept safe. And in that simple stillness, what could have been a wound becomes instead a step toward peace. Silence protects the bond while guiding both souls back to peace. In every relationship, there are moments when tension threatens to unravel the threads of connection. Disagreements arise, tempers flare, and words become weapons that cut deeper than intended. Yet silence has the remarkable ability to stand as a guardian, preserving what anger seeks to tear apart. It becomes the safe space where love can retreat and gather its strength again. In that quiet, the bond is not broken. It is protected until peace can return. When conflict grows, it is easy to forget that the relationship itself is larger than the moment of disagreement. Anger narrows the view, making the argument seem like the only thing that matters. But silence widens that view once more. It reminds both hearts that the bond between them is worth more than the issue at hand. It offers the wisdom to pause, to breathe, and to remember that love should not be sacrificed for the sake of pride. In this way, silence does not weaken the connection. It shields it from unnecessary harm. Silence serves as a soft wall between the storm of emotions and the fragile heart of the relationship. It keeps words from spilling out unchecked and prevents anger from pushing the bond past its breaking point. That space of quiet does not erase the conflict, but it keeps the bond intact long enough for healing to be possible. Without silence, hurtful words may cause lasting damage. With silence, the bond is preserved, waiting for calmer voices and softer hearts to return. There is a tenderness in this kind of silence. It is not about withdrawing love or shutting someone out. It is about creating a sanctuary, a moment of safety where nothing more harmful can enter. It is love choosing to protect itself from the sharp edges of conflict. And in that protection, trust is built. Because when someone realizes you care enough to pause rather than wound, they begin to feel safe, even in the midst of disagreement. That safety becomes the foundation for deeper love. Silence also guides both souls back toward peace because it redirects the focus. Instead of pouring energy into defending positions or fueling anger, silence allows energy to flow back into reflection and empathy. It softens the heart, making it easier to see the situation not as two sides in battle, but as two people seeking common ground. It shifts the question from, who will win this fight, to how do we find our way back to each other? That shift is the first step toward reconciliation. Peace does not come through the victory of one side over another. It comes through understanding, through compassion, through the willingness to put love above ego. Silence makes room for those qualities to rise. It says, let us not tear apart what took so long to build. Let us rest until we can return to this with gentleness. That rest is often the bridge between conflict and resolution. It allows wounds to close before they are made deeper. Silence is not emptiness. It is a form of presence. It is love saying, I am here, but I will not fight you. It is devotion saying, I care too much to let anger define us. It is faith in the bond, faith that peace is possible if both are willing to wait for it. And often, after the quiet has lingered, peace does return. Words soften, eyes meet again. And the bond feels stronger because it has endured the storm without being destroyed by it. The beauty of silence is that it does not just stop harm, it nurtures healing. It creates the soil where forgiveness can grow, where reconciliation can take root, and where love can bloom again. By protecting the bond in times of conflict, silence ensures that what truly matters is not lost in the heat of the moment. It holds the relationship steady until both souls are ready to walk back into peace together. And when peace returns, it feels deeper, because both hearts know that silence stood guard when words might have broken what love was striving to hold. In the end, silence is not emptiness. It is strength, it is love, it is wisdom standing tall in the middle of the storm. It is the pause that saves us from regret, the stillness that turns anger into reflection, the gentle hand that protects what our hearts have worked so hard to build. When we choose silence, we choose patience over pride, peace over pain, and understanding over the need to win. We choose the bond itself. May we learn to carry this gift into every relationship, using silence not as distance, but as devotion, not as withdrawal, but as protection, not as weakness, but as the highest form of strength. May silence guide us back to peace again and again. Good luck on your journey toward deeper love and stronger connections. And thank you for listening with an open heart. My dear listeners, there is a weight the world does not see and a strength it never acknowledges. It is the quiet courage of those who sit beside the brokenhearted, who hold trembling hands in the dark and speak life into silence. Loving someone through their trauma is not a task for the faint of spirit. It calls for a kind of grace that does not parade itself. It asks you to give from wells you did not know you had. But in offering that love, something shifts inside you. You are changed, not just for having witnessed pain, but for having met it with compassion. And in the process, your soul is asked to stretch, to rise, to become more. There is a kind of love that does not roar. It does not announce itself with bright banners or grand declarations. It is the kind of love that shows up quietly at midnight when the tears fall without end. It is the love that stays when the stories get heavy and the silence stretches too long. Carrying another's pain is not about having the answers. It is about being willing to sit in the storm without needing the rain to stop. To be present in someone else's suffering is to walk a road where no map can guide you. You will find yourself called to listen with your whole being. You will hold the weight of their grief like a sacred offering, not knowing if your presence is enough, but offering it still. You will learn that presence is not about fixing. It is about honoring the struggle and saying, I see you. It is the art of being, not doing. And that is where strength lives. In those moments, you begin to understand that true strength has nothing to do with control. It is not about holding it all together. It is about being willing to come undone so someone else does not have to fall alone. It is about showing up raw and real even when your own spirit trembles. That is what carrying another's pain reveals to you. It peels away the masks and invites your soul to stand bare and still. There will be times when your own voice grows hoarse from speaking comfort, When your arms feel heavy from holding what was never yours, but even then, you stay. Not because you must, but because love compels you. Not the soft, easy kind of love, but the kind that digs its heels in and says, I will walk through fire with you. This love stretches you and calls forth a version of yourself you have never met. You begin to learn the language of pain without needing translation. The way a sigh can say everything, the way silence can scream. DDGU. Become fluent in the art of understanding without answers. And in this understanding, something sacred is born. You start to see that your presence is not just comfort for them. It becomes a mirror to your own soul. A reminder that you too are capable of extraordinary grace. And so, my dear listeners, if you ever wonder whether your presence matters, let me tell you now, it does. Not because you solve what cannot be solved, but because you stand where many would have turned away. You offer your stillness, your listening, your heart. That is no small thing. It is the essence of compassion. It is the kind of strength that shifts the ground beneath us all, my dear listeners. There is a moment in life when you listen so deeply to someone's sorrow that it begins to echo inside your own chest. You do not become them, but you begin to feel where they have been. Their suffering touches a place in you that had been asleep, and suddenly the world you once knew begins to look different. Not smaller, not darker, but deeper. You begin to see not just with your eyes, but with your spirit. When you walk beside someone in their pain, your heart becomes a student. It learns the terrain of fear and the language of survival. You notice the tremble in a voice that others might miss. You sense the pause between words and understand it as a scream. And somewhere in that listening, your own soul is reshaped. Your empathy deepens, not by force, but by quiet invitation. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you now carry. The way a person clutches their coat tighter when they talk about the past. The way they smile to hide a story too painful to speak aloud. All of this seeps into your awareness like rain into soil. And without asking, your own roots begin to grow toward that knowing. You no longer judge what you do not understand. There is something profound about loving someone who has known deep pain. You begin to recognize that every stranger has a story. You stop rushing to conclusions because now you understand that most wounds are not visible. Your heart slows down and listens more. And in that stillness, your compassion expands. You are no longer moved only by joy. You are moved by the resilience that rises after suffering. You start to notice things you never did before. The quiet man in the back of the room who does not speak much. The child who avoids eye contact. The friend who always changes the subject when the conversation gets too close. You understand them now because you have watched someone you love try to rebuild from rubble. And that knowledge changes your sight. You begin to see humanity with a tenderness that is hard to explain. This kind of empathy does not just change how you see others, it changes how you see yourself. You become more patient with your own healing, more gentle with your own flaws. Because you know now that strength is not the absence of pain. It is the willingness to face it and keep walking. And as you hold space for someone else's sorrow, you learn to hold space for your own. You become a better listener, a better friend, a more present soul. Not because you set out to be any of those things, but because love carved them into you. Love that dared to sit with brokenness. Love that refused to look away. That kind of love is transformative. It teaches you to feel more fully and live more truly. It stretches the walls of your heart until it can hold more than you ever thought possible. And so, my dear listeners, do not doubt the change within you. When you love someone through their trauma, you are not just witnessing healing, you are being healed too, bit by bit, layer by layer. Your empathy becomes your strength, your understanding becomes your gift. Me, dear listeners, there comes a time when loving someone through their pain causes you to look inward and ask yourself how much you have to give. You begin to wonder where your limits lie and whether you even have the right to set them. You want to be everything for them because your heart aches at the thought of their suffering. You try to hold them up even when your knees start to shake. But the truth is, when you walk with someone through trauma, your own spirit is tested in quiet and complicated ways. You begin to feel the pull between love and exhaustion. At first, you give without thought. You give because love tells you to. You give because you believe they would do the same for you. But over time, you start to feel a strain in your chest that no one else sees. It is the burden of pouring out more than you are filling in. You find yourself lying awake at night, not from your own pain, but from the weight of carrying someone else's. And in those moments, you begin to ask, how much of me is too much to give? The lines between you and them begin to blur. You feel their hurt so deeply that you sometimes forget where your own emotions begin. You take on their silence, their sadness, their fear, and you try to shoulder it all with grace. But somewhere in the stillness, you notice that your own light has dimmed. You smile less, you breathe shallower, you begin to fade in the background of your own life. That is when the cost of compassion begins to show itself. It is not selfish to notice your own fading. It is not wrong to feel tired. Loving deeply does not mean losing yourself in the process. And yet that is what often happens when boundaries are unclear. You want to save them, so you forget to save yourself. But even the strongest trees must be rooted to stand tall. Even the deepest wells must be replenished to keep flowing. And you, my dear listener, are no exception. Learning to support without drowning is a delicate balance. It means saying, I love you, but I also need to rest. It means being honest about your limits without feeling like you are abandoning someone. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. It takes strength to step back without stepping away. It takes courage to say, I am here for you, but I must also be here for me. Only then can your love remain strong and true. You may carry guilt when you draw those lines. You may feel as if you are failing them, but boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that help love travel safely. They are the quiet declaration that says, I want to love you fully, and I can only do that if I also love myself. And in honoring that truth, you teach them something too. You show them what healthy love looks like, what sustainable care feels like. So, my dear listeners, never forget that your presence matters, but so does your peace. Your love is not measured by how much you can endure. It is measured by how deeply you choose to show up with honesty and heart. And when you honor both their pain and your own need for breath, you give a love that is not just present, but whole. There is a quiet truth that reveals itself when you sit with someone in their suffering. As you reach into their darkness to offer light, you often stumble upon your own shadows. You may not have gone searching, but pain has a way of opening doors you forgot were there. And suddenly, in trying to soothe another's wounds, your own begin to ache. You realize that healing is not just happening around you, it is stirring within you too. You may find memories rising that you thought were buried, old heartbreaks that whisper in your ears when you thought you had long since silenced them. Supporting someone through their trauma is like standing in front of a mirror that reflects more than just your kindness. It shows you your broken places. It shows you the tenderness you hide. And though it may surprise you, it is not a curse. It is a calling to tend to your own soul. You cannot walk through the valley of someone else's sorrow without being touched by the fog. And in that fog, you feel things you had tucked away for years. A quiet grief, a forgotten fear, a bruise that never fully healed. You may begin to cry without knowing exactly why. You may grow restless in moments of stillness. That is not weakness, that is your spirit rising to the surface, asking for attention, asking for grace. Do not be afraid of what awakens in you. Those unhealed places are not your shame, they are your proof of survival. And now, with the same compassion you offer to someone else, you are invited to offer it to yourself. You do not have to fix everything at once. But you do need to listen. You need to honor what comes forward with tenderness, not judgment. That is how healing begins again. So many times we give love and forget to receive it. We offer understanding but deny it to ourselves. But when you are walking beside someone in their pain and you feel your own pain rising, do not turn away. That moment is sacred. That moment is your chance to grow. You are not just a supporter in their journey, you are also a soul in motion, learning, unfolding, becoming, and every ache you feel has a voice that longs to be heard. Let yourself be human. Let the tears come if they need to. Let the silence wrap around you if words feel too far away. There is strength in admitting that you too are healing. There is beauty in recognizing that love can awaken things you thought you buried. And when it does, let that be your invitation to care for yourself as deeply as you care for them. Love does not demand your perfection. It only asks for your truth. And so, my dear listeners, do not fear the ache that rises when you support someone through trauma. It is not there to break you. It is there to guide you. Let it lead you inward. Let it make you softer. Let it teach you that healing is not a destination, but a rhythm of giving and receiving, of holding and being held, of offering grace, and at last allowing yourself to receive it too, my dear listeners. There is a weariness that creeps in quietly when you spend your days holding up another soul. You do it out of love, out of loyalty, out of a longing to ease their burden, but no matter how strong your heart may be, the spirit still grows tired. There is a kind of exhaustion that does not come from work or time, but from giving your light again and again. And it is this sacred tiredness of the soul. And yet, even in that fatigue, something unshakable begins to rise in you. You find yourself speaking hope when your own voice is cracking. You reach out even as your own hands begin to tremble. You keep showing up because something inside you knows the value of presence. You know that being there matters even when it does not feel enough. And that kind of persistence, that kind of unwavering grace is what becomes your quiet strength. You are discovering a resilience that does not roar but endures. You may feel invisible sometimes. You may go unnoticed in the background of someone else's healing. But there is no smallness in your role. There is power in your patience, courage in your consistency, and beauty in your silent prayers. It is easy to admire the one who rises from the ashes, but remember, the one who stayed close during the burning is just as worthy of honor. That presence is love made real. Still, this kind of love will cost you something. You may go to sleep with your chest tight. You may feel yourself drifting away from the parts of life that once filled you. The heaviness may not lift quickly. It may sit with you, quiet and constant. This is when you must learn to rest without guilt. This is when you remember that even warriors must lay down their armor. Even the strongest must exhale. And yet, even in your tiredness, you are growing. You are learning how deep your love can run. You are learning how much your soul can carry without breaking. And when the morning comes and you wake still weary but willing, you realize that something inside you has shifted. Your spirit is not just tired, it is also wiser. It knows now that love is not only about showing up when it is easy, love is about remaining when everything aches. In that ache, you will also find something rare, a kind of peace that does not depend on ease, a kind of strength that is born from struggle. You are becoming more than you were before. Not because life made it easy, but because you allowed love to shape you in hard places. You let it stretch you. You let it remake you, and in return, it gave you a quiet fire that will carry you through your own storms one day. So, my dear listeners, if you are feeling the weight of care, if your spirit feels stretched and your hope feels thin, know this: you are not breaking, you are becoming. You are standing in the sacred space between sacrifice and strength. And what rises from you now is not just fatigue, it is resilience. Born of love, shaped in silence and strong enough to last. There is a sacred transformation that takes place when love is tested in the furnace of suffering. When someone you cherish walks through trauma and you choose to stay by their side, something in you begins to shift. It is not just them who is healing. It is not just their spirit that is growing. In choosing to remain, to support, to love through the storm, You are being refined. The fire that touches them brushes your soul too. You begin to love differently, not with ease, not with illusion, but with intention. Love becomes quieter but deeper. It stops being about grand gestures and starts being about presence. A hand on the shoulder, a word at the right moment, a silence that says, I see you and I will not leave. And in this deepening, your own heart starts to change shape. There was a time when love meant comfort, when it meant joy and laughter and light, but now you understand that love is also what you give in the dark. Love is what you whisper when no one has the answers. It is what you hold when everything else has fallen apart. It is what you offer when your own heart is trembling, and still, you give it. Still, you stay. That kind of love cannot remain the same. You are no longer the person you were when the pain began. You have seen too much, felt too much, given too much, and yet you are more than you ever imagined you could be. Your patience has grown deeper. Your voice has grown softer. Your presence has become a place of safety. And even though it has cost you, it has also completed something within you. Do not let the world tell you that strength comes from never bending. True strength is found in those who bend with the wind and still remain rooted. You loved when it hurt. You stayed when it was hard. You listened when the words were sharp and the nights were long. And in doing so, your love has been refined. It has shed its need for ease. It has become something pure. And the one you supported, though they may never fully say it, is changed too. Because love like yours does not go unnoticed. It seeps into the cracks. It anchors the soul. It becomes a reason to believe in kindness again, in trust again, in healing. And so, both of you emerge different. One rising from pain, the other rising from compassion, and both rising from love. So, my dear listeners, when you look at yourself now and wonder why your heart feels wider, your voice gentler, your presence stronger, know this. It is because love tested in pain does not shrink, it grows. And you, in choosing to stay and love through the storm, have become more, my dear listeners. As we reach the end of this journey together, let us hold close the truth that loving someone through their trauma is not only an act of courage, but a mirror that reveals the depth of our own humanity. It teaches us to listen more deeply, to feel more fully, to set boundaries with grace, and to care for ourselves as we care for others. It reminds us that healing is not a straight line, but a sacred dance between giving and receiving, holding on and letting go. You are not alone in your quiet sacrifices, your unseen strength, your soft-spoken love. You are not less for feeling tired. You are not weak for needing rest. You are part of a beautiful and silent army of hearts who choose compassion even when it costs something, and through that choice you grow, you rise, you become. So walk forward now, not empty but full of wisdom, carved by love. Hold your head high and let your heart stay tender. Trust that your efforts matter even when they are not recognized. And believe that the care you give returns to you in ways you cannot yet see. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for being present. Good luck on your journey of love, healing, and self-discovery, and may you be met with the same grace you have so generously given. My dear friends, there comes a moment in every soul's journey when the noise of the world grows too loud and the path ahead too dark to see. But you, yes, you were never meant to wander aimlessly. You were meant to rise with purpose and walk with clarity. And sometimes all it takes is a single page, not a book, not a map, just one page, honest and true, whispering what your heart has been trying to tell you all along. Write it down, write it plain. Let your dream sit there in black and white like a prayer scribbled in the margins of a storm. A single page filled with your vision becomes a contract with your spirit. That is your mirror. That is your compass. You do not need 100 steps when one true step is walked over and over with faith. You do not need a plan too grand to touch, just a line that says, I will begin, and another that says, I will not stop. A single page of clarity holds more power than 1,000 pages of confusion. In a world that constantly throws distractions our way, where noise fills our heads and options pull us in every direction, the value of clear intention cannot be overstated. We are taught to dream big, to plan extensively, to chase goals with boundless ambition. Yet too often that ambition is buried under complexity. We create elaborate plans with bullet points and flowcharts only to feel overwhelmed before we even begin. But when you take one page, just one, and write with truth and precision what it is you truly want, the fog begins to lift. That page does not have to be pretty. It does not have to be poetic. It only needs to be honest. Clarity is not loud. It does not demand attention. It sits quietly in the corner of your soul, waiting to be heard. When you pour it onto the page, it becomes your guide. That single page begins to speak to you in ways no crowd ever could. It becomes a friend when motivation wavers. It becomes a flame when the cold winds of doubt blow in. It becomes a map when you feel lost in the wilderness of your own excuses. Confusion scatters energy, but clarity collects it. It gathers all your scattered thoughts and focuses them like sunlight through a lens until they burn with purpose. When you know what you are aiming for, your efforts begin to matter. You stop chasing shadows and start walking in direction. You stop living by accident and start living by design. That one page becomes the foundation beneath your steps. And it is not the size of the plan that moves mountains. It is the certainty behind it. People fail not because they lack talent, but because they never took the time to write down what they are truly after. They keep the dream in their head where it changes shape every day, where fear and self-doubt can tamper with it. But when you commit it to paper, when you strip it of excuses and clutter, it becomes real. Even when progress feels slow, that page reminds you why you started. It will not let you forget. It holds you accountable. It keeps your vision from being diluted by temporary setbacks or the distractions of comparison. You stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against your own commitment. That is where real progress begins. One page can change everything if it is written with sincerity and fire. You do not need 100 lines of fluff, just a few words of truth. Write it down, keep it close, let it speak to you when the world gets too loud. Because the power to achieve your goal does not lie in how complex your plan is, but in how clear your heart is. And one single page filled with unwavering clarity is more than enough to begin. When your vision is written down, your actions rise to meet it. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from seeing your dream in words. Plain, simple, and unshaken. Something shifts inside when your thoughts are no longer floating in your mind but are set firmly on paper. It is no longer a passing wish or a maybe someday. It becomes something you've claimed. And what you claim, you begin to move toward. You begin to shape your steps, your time, your energy around what you have named. Writing it down brings your vision out of the shadows and into the light. It is no longer something hidden in your thoughts or whispered in hesitation. It's in front of you now, staring back, waiting on you to act. There is no more room for pretending you don't know what you want. There's no more space for vague effort. That single page becomes a challenge and a calling. You either walk in the direction you've written or you turn your back on it. And if it's written with truth, you won't turn away, not for long. There's a beautiful tension that rises when you see your own words staring back at you. They begin to echo in your choices. You wake up with purpose, not because everything is easy, but because now you know what you're waking up for. You begin to say no to things that once drained you. You begin to say yes to effort that once scared you. That page becomes your mirror and your motivation. It does not shout, but it does not let you forget. It reminds you when you get tired. It grounds you when you feel lost. And more than anything, it pushes you to show up, even when doubt and fear tell you to sit still. The truth is, our actions often match the level of our clarity. When the mind is cluttered, effort is scattered. But when your vision is clear, your actions become focused. The page you write becomes more than just words, it becomes a promise. Not a perfect promise, but a growing one. You begin to move with alignment. You begin to live with intention. Even the small steps become sacred because they're tied to something deeper now. Every action, no matter how small, becomes a response to what you have already written down. It becomes your answer to the question, how badly do you want this? And so do not underestimate the power of the pen. Do not ignore the pull to write it down, because once your vision is no longer just a thought, but a truth written in your own voice, something powerful begins to happen. You act, you commit, you move, and with every step you draw closer to the life you already saw on that single page. One honest page can silence the loudest doubts. The mind is a noisy place, full of voices that question, criticize, and compare. They come at you fast, telling you that you're not ready, that you're not enough, that your dreams are too big, or your timing too late. These voices don't ask for your permission. They slip in quietly, sounding like truth, but they are nothing more than fear in disguise. And if you're not careful, they will shape your path without ever laying a hand on you. But something happens when you sit down, heart open and spirit still, and write with honesty what it is you want. When you put it on paper with no need for perfection or polish, just raw clarity, you take the first step in drowning out the doubt. That single page becomes your defense. It becomes your truth when everything else tries to make you question it. Doubt is loud because it wants to distract. It wants you to forget who you are and what you came here to do. But when your vision is written down clearly and honestly, it doesn't leave room for confusion. It stares back at you in black and white. It's not complicated, it's not fancy, but it is yours. And when you see your own truth laid bare, something inside you stands taller. Doubt feeds on silence. It grows in the places where clarity is missing, but that one honest page, it speaks when your confidence cannot. It reminds you of what you decided before the fear crept in. It tells you what matters when the world tries to tell you what's popular. It brings you back to the root, to the reason, to the fire. And when life shakes you, that page keeps you steady. It might not solve every problem, but it keeps you from losing yourself in the noise. There will always be opinions. There will always be setbacks. But when you've written your truth, when your goal is written in your own hand, it becomes harder to quit. You can fall, but you will not forget why you stood up in the first place. That is the power of one honest page. It holds your voice when you lose it. It holds your courage when your heart is tired. It does not yell, but it speaks with weight. It anchors you to your intention. So when the doubts come, and they will, return to that page. Read it slowly. Let the words remind you that you do not need to be fearless to keep moving. You just need to remember who you are and why you started. And sometimes all it takes is that one page to do exactly that. Discipline begins when your goals are no longer just thoughts, but written truths. We often think of discipline as something cold, rigid, even punishing, but in its truest form, discipline is devotion. It is love in action. It is what happens when you decide that your dreams are not just passing ideas, but living intentions that deserve to be honored every single day. When you take the time to write your goal down, to bring it out of your mind and into the world, you are saying to yourself, this matters. And what matters to you is what you begin to show up for. A written goal has a weight to it. It is no longer floating in your head where it can be pushed aside by distraction or fear. It is visible now. It has shape and form. You cannot ignore it the way you could when it was just a quiet thought in the background. It becomes a part of your space, a part of your day, a part of your voice. And that presence calls you to show up differently. You start to move with more intention. You think twice before wasting time. You become a little more protective of your energy and a lot more aware of your choices. Discipline is not about being perfect. It is not about waking up at dawn and doing everything right. It is about remembering what you wrote down when everything else tries to distract you. It is the act of returning again and again to what you said mattered. That single page becomes your reminder. It calls you back when you drift. It checks you when you slip. It pushes you gently when your will starts to fade. And because it is written, because it came from you and only you, you are more likely to respect it. What you write down becomes your standard. It becomes the way you measure your days, not by how busy you were, but by how aligned you were. And when your life starts to line up with your words, you begin to feel a kind of peace that can't be shaken by failure or slowed by delay. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to take pride, not just in the results, but in the effort. The page reminds you that the goal is not just to arrive, but to become someone along the way. Someone who keeps promises to themselves. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start honoring your words. One written goal, one real decision. That's where discipline begins. And from there, everything changes. Your breakthrough often starts with one page of unwavering intention. Not with the crowd cheering you on, not with a grand gesture or perfect timing. Just a quiet moment, a steady hand, and the courage to write down what your heart has been holding for too long. That page is not for anyone else. It is not written to impress. It is written to declare what you're reaching for and to remind yourself that you are done waiting for permission. Unwavering intention means you're no longer entertaining what doesn't align with your vision. It means you've let go of the excuses and distractions and chosen to focus on what truly calls you. When that level of intention is captured in words, even if it's just one paragraph, one sentence, one line, it starts to move you. The act of writing it down becomes a shift in the spirit. It says you're no longer hoping, you're committing. That single page becomes your starting point. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, its power lies in its rawness. It is real. It is yours. And when the world starts to pull you in every direction, that page pulls you back to center. Because now your goal has been spoken, even if only to paper. And that's all it needs to begin taking root. Breakthroughs don't always come wrapped in bright lights. Sometimes they show up in quiet moments of clarity. When you finally decide to stop running in circles and take one clear step forward, that clarity becomes your strength. That written intention becomes your inner compass. You no longer ask, should I? Because the answer is already in front of you. You look at your page and you remember. You remember why it mattered. You remember what it cost to delay. And you choose again to show up, even if it's hard, even if it's slow, even if no one sees you doing it. There is something sacred about the beginning, especially when it's honest. That page becomes more than ink and paper. It becomes your silent partner. It sits with you in doubt. It walks with you in fear. It cheers for you in silence. It holds you accountable, not through pressure, but through love. Because if you wrote it with truth, then it is the truest part of you. And the truest part of you already knows what you're capable of. So write it down, write it bold, not because you are unafraid, but because you are finally willing to believe in what you've been carrying inside. That's when things begin to shift. That's when change becomes possible. That's when your breakthrough begins. So now you see, it does not take a mountain of words or a perfect plan to move your life forward. It takes one page, one clear, honest, unwavering page written with your whole heart. When your vision is spoken through your own hand, when your goal is no longer a whisper but a written truth, your actions begin to find direction, your discipline gains strength. Your doubts lose their grip and your breakthrough finds its doorway. Let that single page be your anchor in chaos, your light in confusion, your reason to keep showing up. Because within that one page lives the beginning of everything you are meant to become. Good luck on your journey. May your words guide you, may your steps stay true, and may your dream never be silenced. Thank you for listening. Good morning, everyone. Strength is not something we're born with fully formed, it's something we build. Like the rising sun that promises warmth and light, strength is a constant journey, one choice at a time, one step forward, even when the path is steep. To be mentally strong is to face life with open eyes and an open heart, to embrace both its trials and its triumphs, and to carry on when the weight of the world feels unbearable. Mental strength doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you don't let fear dictate your destiny. The most powerful relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Your worth isn't defined by external achievements, material possessions, or the opinions of others. It is inherent, unshakable, and uniquely yours. Yet in the rush of life, in the noise of comparison, and in the weight of judgment, it's easy to forget. To know your worth is to understand that you are enough, not because of what you've done, but simply because of who you are. It means recognizing that your value isn't diminished by your mistakes or failures. In fact, those moments of struggle are part of what make you extraordinary. They're proof of your courage to try, to risk, and to grow. But knowing your worth also means setting boundaries. It means being unafraid to say no to things that drain you or make you feel small. It means refusing to settle for less than what you deserve in relationships, in work, and in life. Knowing your worth is a form of self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation upon which mental strength is built. Let's be honest. There will be times when the world tries to tell you otherwise, times when criticism, rejection, or unkindness make you question yourself. In those moments, remind yourself of this truth. Your worth is not up for negotiation. It is not something others can give or take away. It is yours, unchangeable and eternal. Knowing your worth is also about celebrating your individuality. No one else on this planet has your voice, your perspective, your unique combination of talents and dreams. Embrace that. Stop comparing your journey to others because their path isn't meant to look like yours. Finally, knowing your worth means living with purpose and intention. It's not about perfection, it's about authenticity. When you show up as your true self, when you walk through life with confidence in your heart and dignity in your step, you inspire others to do the same. So start today, speak kindly to yourself, honor your strengths, forgive your missteps, and walk boldly knowing you are worthy of all the love, joy, and success life has to offer. Challenges are an inevitable part of life. They come in many forms: unexpected losses, difficult decisions, or moments that test the very core of who we are. While it's natural to feel overwhelmed or even defeated at times, the way you choose to face those challenges defines your strength and character. To face challenges with grace is to meet life's storms with dignity, resilience, and an open heart. Grace doesn't mean you ignore pain or pretend everything is fine when it isn't. Instead, it's about acknowledging the struggle while refusing to let it consume you. Grace is the quiet confidence that says, "This may be hard, but I am harder. This may shake me, but it will not break me." When you encounter adversity, remember that every challenge holds a lesson. It might teach you patience, humility, or perseverance. Some challenges will test your faith in yourself or others, but they also present an opportunity to grow. Instead of asking, "Why me?" try asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" By shifting your perspective, you can transform obstacles into stepping stones. Facing challenges with grace also means being kind to yourself. It's easy to fall into the trap of self-criticism when things go wrong, but grace begins with self-compassion. Give yourself permission to feel, to cry, to be frustrated, to pause if you need to, but don't let those feelings define you. Emotions are fleeting. Your strength is not. It's important to approach challenges with balance. Graceful strength doesn't mean fighting every battle or bearing every burden alone. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is ask for help. Lean on your community, your loved ones, or even the wisdom of those who have walked similar paths. Accepting support is not a sign of weakness. It's a testament to your humanity and wisdom. When facing challenges, don't underestimate the power of hope. Grace is sustained by hope, the belief that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will come. Cling to that light, even if it's just a flicker. Let it guide you, reminding you that every storm eventually passes, and with each passing storm, you become more resilient, more prepared for the next. Lastly, remember that grace is not about how the world sees you. It's about how you see yourself. Facing challenges with grace doesn't mean having all the answers or maintaining a perfect composure at all times. It means standing firm in your values, holding on to your integrity, and walking forward, even if you stumble. So when life sends its challenges your way, face them not with fear, but with faith. Carry yourself with the quiet strength of someone who knows that while the winds may bend you, they will not break you. And when you emerge on the other side, as you always will, let the world see not only the scars of your battles, but also the grace with which you overcame them. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. In a world that equates strength with invulnerability, showing your softer side can feel like a risk, like an admission of weakness. But let me tell you this, vulnerability is not weakness. It is courage in its purest form. It is the willingness to stand in the truth of who you are, to let the world see you, not just your victories, but your struggles, your fears, and your dreams. To embrace vulnerability is to embrace life itself in all its messiness and unpredictability. It's about letting go of the mask that says, "I have it all together," and allowing yourself to be human. When you open up to vulnerability, you open yourself to connection. You create space for authenticity, not just in yourself, but in those around you. True vulnerability requires trust. Trust in yourself and in the people you allow into your life. It's not about sharing every detail with everyone, but about choosing wisely and courageously who you let into your heart. When you dare to be vulnerable with the right people, you create bonds that are unshakable, built on honesty and mutual respect. But embracing vulnerability isn't always easy. It means facing your fears, the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, the fear of not being enough. Yet here's the paradox. By leaning into those fears, you often find they lose their power. Vulnerability is a teacher, showing you that it's okay to stumble, to not have all the answers, to ask for help. It reminds you that perfection is an illusion and that your worth isn't tied to an unattainable standard. Vulnerability also fuels creativity and growth. Think about it. Every time you try something new, you're stepping into the unknown, exposing yourself to the possibility of failure. But without that risk, there's no reward. Vulnerability is what allows you to dream big, to push boundaries, and to discover what you're truly capable of. To embrace vulnerability is to honor your emotions, even the difficult ones. Let yourself grieve when you've suffered a loss. Let yourself feel joy without worrying it might be fleeting. Let yourself admit when you're scared rather than pretending to be fearless. In doing so, you give yourself permission to heal, to grow, and to thrive. And here's something beautiful about vulnerability. It's contagious. When you show up as your authentic self, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage to be real can inspire someone else to take off their mask, to share their truth, to connect in a way that is deep and meaningful. Finally, embracing vulnerability means finding strength in your imperfections. It's realizing that you are enough, just as you are. You don't have to prove your worth through constant achievement or by hiding your struggles. Your humanity, flaws and all, is your greatest strength. So the next time you feel the urge to hide behind a facade, remember this. Vulnerability is not a weakness to overcome. It is a gift to be embraced. It is the doorway to connection, to growth, and to a life lived fully and authentically. Step through that door with courage, knowing that the reward is a deeper connection, not just with others, but with yourself. Hope is the quiet, steadfast flame that keeps us moving forward, even when the road ahead is shrouded in darkness. It's not just a feeling or a fleeting emotion. It's a choice, a belief that tomorrow holds the possibility of something better. To hold on to hope is to anchor yourself in the belief that no matter how difficult the present moment may be, it is not the end of your story. Life has a way of testing us, of pushing us to our limits and making us question everything we thought we knew. In those moments, it's easy to feel lost or overwhelmed, but hope reminds us that every storm runs its course, that even the longest night must eventually give way to the dawn. Hope whispers, hold on, just a little longer. You are stronger than this moment. Holding on to hope doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about acknowledging the difficulties you face while still believing in your ability to overcome them. Hope is not blind optimism. It's grounded in resilience. It's the ability to see challenges for what they are, temporary, and to trust in your capacity to grow and adapt. There will be times when hope feels elusive, when the weight of the world seems too heavy to bear. In those moments, it's important to find reminders of hope around you. Look for it in the beauty of a sunrise, in the kindness of a friend, or in the small victories that often go unnoticed. Sometimes hope is found in the simple act of getting out of bed, of taking one step forward when it feels impossible. Hope is also deeply connected to purpose. When you have something to strive for, whether it's a dream, a goal, or a vision for a better future, hope becomes the fuel that keeps you moving. If you're ever unsure of where to find hope, ask yourself, what is one thing worth holding on for? It might be your family, your aspirations, or even the possibility of helping someone else through their struggles. Another way to nurture hope is to surround yourself with people who uplift and inspire you. Hope thrives in community. When you share your fears and dreams with others, you'll often find that they reflect your hope back to you. They remind you of your strength when you've forgotten it and offer their light when yours feels dim. Hope also requires patience. It's not always a quick fix or an immediate solution. It asks you to endure, to wait, and to trust in the process of life. But while hope requires patience, it also calls for action. It's not enough to simply wish for better days. You must take steps toward them, however small they may be. Each action, no matter how minor, is a declaration of faith in the future. And remember, hope is resilient. Even when it feels like it has been extinguished, it has a way of reigniting. Sometimes it's a tiny spark that flares up when you least expect it. A kind word, a new opportunity, or the realization that you've survived every hardship you faced so far. Holding on to hope means believing in the possibility of change. It's about understanding that life is not stagnant, that your current struggles do not define you, and that better days are always ahead. It's about trusting that you have the strength to rebuild, to heal, and to rise again. So when the days feel heavy and the road seems endless, hold on to hope. Cling to it as if your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Hope is what gives us the courage to keep going, the strength to face another day, and the faith that the best chapters of our story are still waiting to be written. The past is a powerful teacher. It holds lessons shaped by experiences, triumphs, mistakes, and moments of growth. To learn from the past is to honor its wisdom, to take its lessons and use them as a foundation for building a better future. But while the past can guide us, it should never imprison us. It's easy to get caught up in what was, replaying old mistakes, dwelling on missed opportunities, or reliving painful memories. But living in the past robs you of the present and dims the possibilities of the future. To move forward, you must find a balance. To reflect on the past without being consumed by it. Start by embracing the lessons your past offers. Look back on your journey and identify the moments that shaped you for better or worse. What did you learn about yourself during your hardest times? How did you grow after your setbacks? The beauty of the past is that it offers clarity that's often absent in the moment. When you take the time to reflect, you begin to see patterns, identify strengths, and recognize areas for growth. However, learning from the past also means accepting it for what it is, unchangeable. You cannot rewrite what has already been written, but you can choose how it shapes the chapters ahead. Dwelling on what ifs or should haves keeps you trapped in a cycle of regret and self-blame. Instead, focus on the lessons learned and ask yourself, how can I use this experience to move forward? It's equally important to let go of the emotional weight the past can carry. Forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made. Forgive others for the ways they may have hurt you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It means freeing yourself from the burden of resentment and guilt. It's a gift you give yourself, a way to release the chains that tether you to a moment that no longer serves you. Learning from the past also means celebrating it. Too often we focus on our failures and overlook our victories. Remember the times you persevered, the challenges you overcame, and the goals you achieved. These moments are proof of your resilience and strength. They're reminders that you faced difficulty before and emerged stronger, and you can do it again. But don't let nostalgia hold you back. While it's comforting to look back on the good old days, be mindful not to romanticize the past to the point where it overshadows the present. Every stage of life has its unique joys and challenges. By clinging too tightly to a past version of happiness, you risk missing the beauty of what's unfolding right now. To truly move forward, you must ground yourself in the present. The past is a place to visit, not to live. When you find yourself stuck in old patterns or consumed by memories, remind yourself that the only moment you can truly control is this one. What will you do today to create a brighter tomorrow? Finally, remember that learning from the past is a continuous process. As you grow and change, your perspective on past events may shift, revealing new insights and deeper understanding. Be patient with yourself as you navigate this journey. Growth is not linear, and healing takes time. So take what the past has taught you, its lessons, its scars, its wisdom, and carry it with you as a guide, not as a burden. Let it remind you of how far you've come, but don't let it dictate where you're going. Your story is still unfolding, and the best chapters are yet to be written. Human beings are not meant to walk through life alone. We are inherently social creatures, wired for connection, belonging, and support. Community is where we find strength, not just in times of celebration, but also in moments of struggle. It is a wellspring of encouragement, a safe haven, and a source of shared wisdom. To find strength in community is to recognize that we are stronger together than we could ever be on our own. Community can take many forms: your family, friends, colleagues, neighbors, or even people who share a common passion or goal. Whatever form it takes, the essence of a community lies in its ability to lift each other up. It is a space where burdens feel lighter because they are shared, where joys are amplified because they are celebrated together. When life feels overwhelming, the strength of a community can be transformative. Think of the times when someone simply listened to you, when their words or actions reminded you that you were not alone. That connection is the power of community. It validates our experiences, offers empathy, and helps us see that even the heaviest challenges can be faced with the support of others. Being part of a community also gives you a sense of purpose and belonging. It reminds you that your actions, no matter how small, have an impact on others. Whether it's lending a hand to a friend in need, volunteering for a cause you care about, or simply being present for someone who needs a listening ear, these moments create ripples of kindness and connection that strengthen everyone involved. Every person walks this world bearing the lessons they learn to help others. But finding strength in community isn't just about receiving support, it's also about giving it. When you show up for others, you discover reservoirs of strength you didn't know you had. Helping someone else through their challenges often puts your own struggles into perspective and reminds you of your capacity for compassion and resilience. Building and maintaining a strong community requires effort and vulnerability. It means reaching out, even when it feels uncomfortable. It means being willing to share your own struggles and ask for help when you need it. Often, the greatest barrier to finding strength in community is the fear of being a burden. But let me tell you this, you are not a burden. Your vulnerability is a bridge, an invitation for others to connect with you on a deeper level. In a world that often emphasizes independence, finding strength in community is a radical act of courage. It's a reminder that needing others is not a sign of weakness. It's a testament to our shared humanity. Life is a journey filled with peaks and valleys, and no one should have to navigate it alone. Community also teaches us the beauty of diversity. Each person brings their unique experiences, perspectives, and strengths to the table. By leaning on and learning from one another, we gain insights we might never have discovered on our own. Community broadens our horizons, challenges our assumptions, and helps us grow into more compassionate and understanding individuals. Moreover, the strength of a community is its ability to adapt and persevere. History is full of examples of communities coming together to overcome adversity. Whether it's rebuilding after a natural disaster, supporting each other through times of social or political unrest, or simply standing by one another in times of personal hardship. These stories remind us of the incredible power of collective resilience. So how do you find or build your community? Start by showing up. Be present, be authentic, and be willing to connect. Seek out spaces where you feel seen and valued, where you can contribute and grow. Whether it's joining a local group, reconnecting with old friends, or reaching out to someone who seems to need a hand, take that first step. Community doesn't happen by accident. It's built with intention and care. And once you've found your community, nurture it. Celebrate each other's successes, offer support during tough times, and create an environment where everyone feels valued. A strong community isn't about perfection. It's about showing up for one another time and time again. In the end, finding strength in community is about recognizing that we are all connected. Your struggles are not yours alone to bear, and your joys are not yours alone to celebrate. Together, we can face life's challenges with courage, share its beauty with gratitude, and build a world that reflects the best of what it means to be human. Would you like to include specific examples of community impact or additional suggestions for building meaningful connections?